I'm going to start off by asking John and Rhonda if they want to just give us a recap of like when they received their service dog and who it was for, why you were getting him, and we'll move on from there, and we'll eventually be able to get some individual questions from recipients who are waiting to get a dog.
Well, we're John and Rhonda Faciane. We got Cody in, I believe, 2013. Actually, today is Cody's birthday.
You are kidding me.
No, he was
That's
born in
really cool.
2011. Yes. So he actually turns 13 today.
Happy birthday to him. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's laying behind us.
Hold on.
Oh, can you unblur it?
Hold on, let me unblur.
Here you go.
There's Cody.
He's looking
So-
amazing for a 13-year-old dog.
Yeah.
He still responds to your voice.
Oh,
Yep.
that is super sweet. Hi, buddy. How's it going? He's such a sweetheart. So our dogs that go to work with children, some for recipients that are children, they are usually raised in a home with children. So he spent a good amount of time in my home. And I remember asking my kids, like, for when I would have Cody out and I'm working with him, I asked them to be particularly rowdy because I wanted to just almost like throw everything at a dog at once. Like, this is what, like, worst case scenario, like how chaotic it can be. And the thing with kids is that you can't reenact children well. Like, as trainers, we can try to act like a child. We can act as childlike as possible, but children, they're unpredictable. Like, they do things all of a sudden that you just do not expect. Like, I will jump up and down and like make funny noises, and I'll run and I'll throw toys, and I will get down on the dog's level and like look right in their face, and I will play with their ears and their tail, and like I'll lie down on the dog. I do everything that I possibly can. But then here comes one of my kids, and I had my son one time like crab crawl, or he was like crawling like a crab to the room as fast as he could. And then other times, like, they run and they like get down on their knees and just slide on the tile. They do all sorts of things that we just can't even manage with our adult bodies anymore.
Yeah.
But they definitely get a lot of exposure to kids. So going back to Cody, who's happy birthday 13. So you got him quite a while ago. And tell us why you got him.
We got him for our son Maxim, who has autism and a plethora of other disabilities.
Is that him back
That's Maxim in the back.
there? Hey, Maxim, how's it going?
Good.
Good to see you.
So Maxim is now 18 years old.
Yeah, he's not a little boy anymore.
No, he was 8 years old when we got Cody. We came to find out later on that Maxim actually has seizures as well, a little bit later on after we had already gotten Cody. But we got Cody to help with, because Maxim has a big issue with crowds, with just all kind of different loud noises. He would run and hide, he would cover his ears. Well, what we did is we would actually tether Cody to Maxim. And when we needed to get Maxim out of a situation, I would get Maxim up on his feet and I would tell Cody forward, and Cody would help us get Maxim out of that situation. Because Maxim, if you know anything about autism, you deal with meltdowns, you deal with all kind of different situations. I always say they're like a box of chocolates from Forrest Gump. You pick one piece of chocolate each day, and it's going to be a completely different piece. And that's kind of how these kids are. They're going to be, you don't know what you're going to get from day to day. So with him, John and I were actually talking about it in the car last night. We started remembering things. We were in a zoo, in Dallas Zoo. And we were on the other side of the zoo. Maxim had been talking about seeing the brand new elephant, the baby elephant. We're on the other side. And I'm like, oh, we need to get over there. Maxim's like screaming, yelling, no, I don't want to go see the elephant. And I'm like, oh, yeah, buddy, you're going to go see this elephant. And so we got Maxim up on his feet, got him hooked up, and told Cody, forward. I'm marching him through the zoo. He's yelling and screaming. The other parents are looking at us like, what's going on? John's just like, don't worry about it. We got him over to that elephant, and then it was totally different. Look, Mama, the elephant. It was like, yep, crowds. Maxim we went to a graduation, university graduation, and Maxim, the crowd was unbelievable. Maxim's getting a little bit out of sorts with it. Cody had maneuvered Maxim right against the wall and stood between the crowds and Maxim. And then Maxim just kind of, crouched down and was just rubbing on Cody. And he was calm as ever because Cody realized and picked up on that Maxim needed it. And so he just stood there between the crowds and Maxim. There was other times that Maxim would be almost in a meltdown. We would take Maxim's hands and just place them on Cody while, Maxim's just in his meltdown. And all of a sudden, those fingers would start slowly working in the fur. And he would start calming down. And Cody's just breathing steady for him. He'd lick him every once in a while. He'd lean towards him. And those hands just slowly started working in that fur and calmed him down.
Yeah, Cody was very artful in deep pressure
Yes.
therapy. He still does it to this day, even though he's retired. If he senses something, he'll still do it today. It's part of his nature, and that's one of the things we loved about him. The seizure alerts are amazing because if we measured it out, it was about 15 minutes prior to him having a seizure that he would alert to it. So we were able to do a lot more. Now we can't confirm, but Cody was with me at my office. He was 18 miles away at school by himself, and Cody alerted. We couldn't trying to figure out why he's trying to alert. Well, Rhonda called the school. Sure enough, he had just had a seizure. We don't know how that.
Yeah, we don't know how that worked, but yeah.
He was alerting whenever Maxim was having a seizure separate from him. And actually, so we're thinking the sensing that you trained him on has a lot to do with that.
It was amazing. It
When you
really.
received Cody, he was trained. I'm going to try to recall without looking at your file, but I think he was trained in tether and deep pressure therapy. I think he was also trained in alert, but it was as almost like a dog that would like be a psychiatric service dog for alert, where they're alerting to anxiety or destructive or repetitive behaviors. And then I don't remember him being trained in search. Was he also trained in search?
We did that later.
Okay.
We worked with us through email, phone conversations to do that at a later time.
Okay. So I just was going to ask what things he had learned to do after the fact, after you received him.
That was the seizure alert, and then also the go find it.
And when that might have been, I'm remembering another handler training that took place with one of his siblings. And it was one of the first dogs that we had trained with scent training in advance. So I don't know if when you got him and I was helping you long distance, did I tell you how to train him?
Yes.
With scent?
And also you had tried it with Cody as well. because Cody's brother was the one that went to the gentleman with seizures that would have the seizures that would alert 15 to 20 minutes before. And Cody picked it. You were using that with him as well, because we had to send a Ziploc bag with the scents that you asked us to send to him. And I remember you did try that. I don't know if that was part of the plan, but you did do it for him. So it was very helpful.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Because yeah, Maxim got to, I don't know if y'all's children have done this. They get this thought in their head and all of a sudden he would just take off. And you hear so many stories about autistic kids, you know, they can't find them or something like that. We found Maxim one time like 3 or 4 miles away. And he had crossed major roads. He had ended up at a convenience store.
Wow.
And it was very difficult for him to communicate his name and everything else. So he had a bracelet that he would wear that had our phone numbers on it. And the officers called us. By this time, you know, I'm hysterical. John's even killed, but I'm the hysterical one. And they called us and we rushed down there. And that was right before we got Cody as well. And so, yeah, now though, we'll look at Cody and say, go to Maxim even now, and he'll go get him. He goes to him. Now he'll just sit beside him now and just be with him. But yeah, he'll still go to him now.
Well, we believe that dogs are alerting to the seizures based off of scent. So I'm not sure if that instance that happened to you, if it was just a random happenstance, because I mean that's too far away to smell.
Right.
But there have been some case studies done to try to determine how dogs are able to tell when their owner is coming home, and they'll like go sit by the door like 15 minutes before they get there. That's a long time before someone gets there. And it also might be random. Maybe, I mean, there's so many other things that could happen. Like maybe they are calling and talking to the spouse, like, I'm on my way home. And maybe the spouse's tone of voice just sounds a certain way, like, oh, they're on their way, even when it's the time that's not expected. Certainly the major thought process is that they can hear a car coming down the road. And so they're going to go and wait by the door like a minute before they actually show up. But there's all these dogs that reports of dogs that will go and sit by the door 15 minutes before. So I mean, I have no idea, but we do think it's scent. And we've seen it demonstrated through training that we've done. You know, in training the dogs, like we see an absolute difference in dogs that we do scent training with in a classroom. And then they're go placed with their recipient. And there's just no way that the dog could learn to alert in advance without this training that they had beforehand with the scent sample. Did you ever use search? I know that you'll say like go find Maxim and he'll be able to do it, but were there times when he actually had eloped and you were able to utilize Cody's training for that?
There was a couple of times when we lived in another neighborhood that was with John's parents. They lived like what was about 6, 7 houses down from us, and we couldn't find Maxim, and so we would tell Cody, okay, go find him. And Maxim was actually going down to Granny's. He wanted to go see Granny and and Grandpa, and so sure enough, Cody had head off that way, and there, you know, Granny's calling us saying, do you know Maxim and Cody are down here?
There they are.
We're like, oh, we know now.
Yeah, one of the things that is tricky with search and having a dog with someone that does elope is that you do train the dog to follow their handler. We want them to be very bonded and for the dog to just organically follow them around. And so the question comes when you do have a recipient that elopes is, how would you, like, when would you utilize search training? So in public, there's a tether, and at home, if the recipient, you know, opened a door or opened a gate, they walk out, the dog's probably going right along with them because they're so bonded the dog's not necessarily thinking like, wait a minute, let me go tell mom and dad that you're leaving. Like they just go with the recipient because that's what we've trained them to do through this bond. And so most often when we have seen that a dog is able to utilize their search training because they didn't just go on with the recipient and walk out of the home, is that the recipient is like climbing over a gate or climbing through a window. Like the doors and the gates are locked and they can't get out that way. So they found another way to get out. Like one little boy would put the trash can against the fence and then got on top of the trash can and went over, and the dog's like, what about me? And then the dog was able to help in that regard. And then we had another dog that very regularly helped when his little boy would get lost at the park. So there are times when you're in public when the tether training is not realistic. So one of those is at a park on a playground with that play structure, and it has a lot of blind spots in there where the parents can't always see where their child is, and so sometimes he would just vanish, and they would tell the dog search, and sometimes he was still in the play structure, and other times he was over on the other side of the park at the drinking fountain or just like resting under a tree or something like that.
Well,
So
that's one of the positive things with Maxim. Even if he was untethered anywhere, Cody always kept an eye on him,
Oh, yeah.
always observed where he was going. And sometimes he would sit in the direction he was at and he would make sure we knew which direction he was. We would still see him. He was within eyesight, but Cody would not lose that eyesight. If he was getting out of eyesight, something blocking him, he would move us. He would make sure we moved to where we could see him. Even if we were planning on doing it anyway, he was still actively making sure line of sight was there. And he still does that today. Anytime, well, actually not just for Maxim, but also for Rhonda now. He does it for both of them.
oh, what a
He
good
always
boy.
keeps an eye for him.
Yeah. But I mean, if you know anything about autistic kids, they can disappear very quickly. They are very fast. Before you even realize it, they're gone. And so we got all kind of like bells on the doors, on the windows, anything that could possibly open in our house that we put a little chime on so we could hear when a door opened or something like that, because they are quick. Whew.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to open this up for questions from recipients that are waiting for their dog. I'll start with Christine. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a few, but I'll just start with one
Yeah.
and then round back. Did Cody end up going to school with your son?
We're in the state of Louisiana, and the school system here gave us such grief. So to answer your question, no, he did not.
Okay.
Because they gave us so many issues, problems you wouldn't believe. But what I would do is, because they made it almost impossible for us, because of the age Maxim was, he has to be totally responsible for the dog. No aide can take the dog out, no aide can handle the dog, nothing. Well, they became like best pals. Cody and Maxim did. So sometimes if Maxim wanted to take off at school, he would just say, come on, Cody, Cody's going. So I would have Cody with me. I drop Maxim off, pick him up, and Cody was with him, during those times.
Mhm. I'm sorry you have a state like that. That's a bummer.
I can go over that more too when we're done. I might just add in more about like how to manage.
Yeah, we're in
taking
Texas
dogs
now,
to
it's a lot
school.
better. He's not in school anymore, but in Texas, they have a lot better program and a lot better adjustment. I do know that.
Yeah.
Ashley, do you have any questions? You're muted.
Yes, there we go.
There you go.
How hard was the training for the seizure response once you got home?
It wasn't that difficult. Because Maxim was having, we didn't realize he was having anywhere between 50 to 100 seizures a day. He was having the itty bitty ones.
But,
Yeah, the petite malls. So once we realized what he was having and went to all the doctors and everything, then we really stressed on, okay, as soon as he had it, let's start the training. So we did the scent training with the wipe the inside of the mouth, wipe the palms, and we started that. And then once Cody, I mean, such a intelligent dog, all these dogs are, that he picked it up really quick.
I can tell you how intelligent Cody is. In handler training, I was a week late because I had to work. And I had the pleasure of working with Katie all by myself with Cody and the handler training. And we were in California. And Rhonda and the boys and a friend, they went walking down the beach and went down. And Katie was working with me. There was one thing it just wasn't clicking with me.
Holding the leash.
It was handling the leash, crossing the leash, the way the handler crossed the leash. Cody was getting it, and he was trying to show me how to do it. And he was just sitting there. Katie was patient, explaining exactly what to do. And Cody was just sitting there looking at me with his head cocked like, can you get it? Can you get it? So yes, he is smarter than the handler. Like,
It was funny because we could see it from a distance. And the friend that went with us, she's got a very kind of loud voice. And all of a sudden, both her and I started cracking up laughing, and they could hear us laughing at them.
Katie was
So-
just shaking her head at me.
I can't remember, Katie. Can you remind me, please? When Jonah gets matched with the dog, is there a time frame where, like, if he has a seizure, we send the sample after the match is made? Is that right?
Correct.
And then if he does not have a seizure within that time frame, it's okay. We do it at home afterwards. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice to be able to get a jump start on that. Because we usually have about a month where we're just working out the final details, like getting any different vests that we need. Sometimes the dog needs a different vest, but usually it's because a month is a really good time for you to make preparation and to adjust your schedule and make all your travel arrangements and all of that. Like when you're going to have a baby, you have 9 months to prepare for it, but for the service dog, it's, you've been waiting for years and then surprise, it's next month. So we have a month, and sometimes maybe a little bit more to be working with the dog if you're able to collect a scent sample.
And generally in a month, that's not a big deal. That's just the only thing I'm just a little bit nervous on.
Yeah,
Don't be.
but don't you worry. I mean, this is a good example with Cody, is that he was able to learn it after placement. Yeah. There's a lot of things like lifestyles change and disabilities change. The dog can change. So training is ongoing. And a lot of our recipients are teaching their dogs new things. In fact, I mean, I'm sure there's some that don't, but the majority that I'm thinking of, they've taught their dog something new after they got it.
I will say, Ashley, that the training that Katie does and her team do remotely is phenomenal. They do understand it.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have the knowledge of the dog, the response that it's already there. So they understand the personality of that particular dog. So they know the situation. So they know how to communicate to it. And it's very good. And do not be afraid of that. Do not at all. And just be patient, listen. And she does a great job. They really do.
Thank you very much. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, and never fear about reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm having this issue. As soon as you start to have the issue, reach out to them and say, this is happening. What do I do? Absolutely. And they'll walk you through everything.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit annoying. So in handler training, I start off by saying, don't be paranoid or offended, but I'm going to be picking on you. It is my job. I'm going to be I'm not mean about it at all, but we do want to perfect the handling as much as possible. Like we're not going to be laughing at John when he can't hold the leash right. Someone else is doing that for us.
I'm doing it.
No, actually, You know, it's actually very good. Very, and your corrections are very professional. I deal with training. I'm a professional trainer. I deal with training people and dealing with people constantly. And I'll tell you, sitting with Katie and her team and the people that we worked with, they're very professional, they're very direct because they want you to understand exactly what you have. And I'll tell you right now, Katie and they are great. They really are.
Thank you, John. So
Yeah, we were sitting at lunch one day on Granada Island, and we were in an outside patio, and Katie looks at me at one point, she says, "Your dog's up." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I'm just going on talking. She says, "Your dog's up." It's like, okay. And she's like, "Your dog is up." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because Cody had sat up and I needed to put him back into a downstay. And so she just kind of like, she just kept just, "Your dog is up," until I did it. And it's like, oh yeah, sorry. It was, yeah, it
you
was
have a very good memory because I don't remember that particular moment, but that is exactly what I say to all our recipients. Your dog is up.
Very calmly.
Very calmly. Yeah.
And the good thing is my memory is coming back with a bunch of things. So it's some of the funny things that I'll really start to remember now.
You thought I was just you know,
You were just having a
conversation. Your dog is
conversation.
up.
Yeah,
No, you need to fix it. Your dog is up.
yeah.
So that's cute. Okay, Tori or Char, do you have any questions?
Okay. I just wondered with Cody being retired, what does Maxim do now? Does he have any comfort in that way?
Oh,
Something
yeah.
to go on?
Well, right now we're still trying to figure out what we're gonna do to make that transition. Because as dogs get older, they start giving more health
Yeah.
issues. And so we're starting to try to prepare Maxim for that, as well as make the transition to, okay, what are we going to do? We know we need to do something, and we're starting to talk through that and figure out what we're going to do. Yeah, absolutely. We also have two other dogs here in the home. One of them is John's service dog for PTSD. And so all the dogs kind of give Max some comfort right now, even Cody.
Good.
So he is able to have, and then he's still able to go outside and run with the other dogs, while Cody just, lounges on the deck watching everything.
Okay.
In the process, also his age development, he's developed some skills and some things to help him as well. So that's been a positive situation there, but we still have Cody and we want to make sure he's taken care of and he's
Yeah.
enjoying his golden years.
Yeah.
Good for him. And thanks to you for all you guys have done. It's terrific.
Oh,
We've had some medical issues with Cody. A 22-pound mass developed in on his chest.
It was
Oh my-
20 pounds?
22 pounds.
yeah.
Oh my
When they
God.
finally removed it and it had metastasized into the muscles and in around the joints.
Mhm.
Our doctor did remove it and did a great job.
But it was non-cancerous.
It was non-cancerous. It was benign.
This was
and-
about, what, 2 years ago?
Oh, that was 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
And,
Yeah.
and he's starting to, he just, because of his age now, he gets these fatty tumors and it just starts swelling and amassing. But we just keep comforting him along. He's got another one developing. The veterinarian last week, they said, we're not going to if it gets bad or restrictive on him, then we'll deal with something. But right now, because of his age, we're not going to worry about it because he's getting along good. 12 years old. He's getting around.
Well,
Well, 30 now.
you gotta also realize too, when you get a service dog, it is exactly like Katie says. You have another child.
Mhm.
Absolutely. They get sick. They kind of have their little tantrums every once in a while. They just get kind of moody. They're like, I don't want to do this today. Thank goodness though, Cody is very food motivated. And so all we have to do with him, is just kind of, okay, give him some treats, get him doing some fun things that he enjoys. So you just got to realize though too, you have another child that can't speak, but will show you how they feel in different ways
Yeah.
instead of snoring.
Snoring right now.
Yeah, he's laying back here on the floor, just spread out snoring. So
Adorable. I'm going to take just a quick minute before we go on to the next question, we'll go for another round, maybe a couple more. Because thank you so much for doing this. This is
yeah,
a unique situation where we can ask questions, and I think that's great. But it is a hard conversation to have, and definitely a family meeting moment when you're talking about what you're going to do when that time comes and that service dog is not there anymore. Also talking about the retirement of the dog. And it is really it's a personal decision. It's going to be different for every single dog and every single family and every single recipient. So with some of our recipients, the dog has worked in a therapeutic way in the sense where they have learned some additional skills. And sometimes it's just maturity, especially when we have a really young recipient that is maturing in age and their development. But even when we have an adult that's getting a service dog, sometimes the dog acts therapeutically in the way where they are now able to have conversations with people in public, and they're able to just develop more coping mechanisms. And the dog was another tool in the tool belt to get to that point, and they don't need another service dog. And then other recipients, they definitely know that they're going to need another service dog. And if they definitely need another service dog, it's good to start thinking about that when the dog is kind of like middle-aged, because you want to be able to plan ahead. And a lot of our recipients are such service dog experts by that point that they feel comfortable self-training or doing like a hybrid self-training program where the dog's partially trained and then they continue it, or they're going to get back on the wait list and get a dog. But the wait list is long. So we want to be able to, look far ahead on that and plan in advance if you're going to need another fully trained dog. And then the grief process is really intense. It is not the same as it is in losing a pet. And losing a pet is certainly hard enough on its own. And losing a family member, that's also really hard. But a service dog is it fits a unique part of your heart because they're not only your friend, sometimes they're closer even than a family member. They're like a shadow, and they also help you. Like, it is such a unique thing. So our program, when a dog passes, we have a little support group, and we have one of our staff members is a recipient who has lost a service dog from Little Angels, and she's so good at like understanding, like she's been where you are, and how everyone deals with their grief is different. There's definitely grief stages that we look at that would be typical, but like what's going to help you through that does vary from person to person. And sometimes it might just be spending time with other human beings. Sometimes it's going to be spending time with other animals, whether that's other animals in your home, or maybe even fostering a dog, or like fostering kittens, or going and volunteering at a shelter. There's just so many different ways to go about it, but definitely reach out to us because we have worked with a lot of different recipients who do grieve in different ways. So don't be shy ever. We always want to know. And even in like our follow-up process, like I was saying that I'm kind of annoying in the sense where like I'm always like, oh, your dog is up, your dog is up, your dog is up. And I do that all the way through handler training. But after you leave handler training, I also, if I don't hear from you every day, I'm texting you and I'm saying, how's it going? Like, you haven't gotten rid of me that quick, because we really want you to be successful. And we actually have it written into our contract now. It didn't used to be there, but we say we need you to reach out in at least 7 days. Like, no, don't let this behavior problem last for more than 7 days without talking to us. And we would really like you to be able to talk to us immediately, because the longer a behavior goes without modification, it can start to become a habit, and then it can grow and it can become a bigger issue. So definitely reach out and let us know right away. You definitely are not bothering us. We care so much about that dog and so much about you. We know the dog's personality, but we've also learned your personality a little bit in handler training. So please reach out. Okay, Christine, I'm going to come back to you and ask if you have any more questions.
Yes. So when you did the handler training, I guess I know you got trained and Maxim got trained. I guess as far as like how involved, or because I don't know, because you said he was 8, right?
Yes.
Okay. How involved he was it like he did the commands first and you did them, so kind of how that went about, I guess.
For our situation, I was kind of like considered the head handler. John and I had decided that beforehand because of the autism and everything. Maxim he was really delayed. So, and his speech was delayed as well. When we got him, his front 4 teeth were rotted at the gum line. So he had a prosthetic in. We had dental surgery, we put in a prosthetic, but he still could not make certain sounds because it wasn't like the air going through his natural teeth. Well, so through handler training, I was there as kind of like the head person, but Maxim was always right beside me. So he was learning, but I was kind of like in control to start off with.
And Maxim was involved in the therapy process for the deep pressure. He actually physically was there, felt it, dealt with it, the touch, the control, everything. He did a great job with it because he was there presently with it. And Katie was able to direct exactly what it was and to communicate with Rhonda how to do it. Now, I don't know if you picked it up, Maxim is adopted. He was adopted we adopted him. So all this stuff came into the play with this. So we were finding things newer as the time went by. We found more issues and more things. The good thing is because of the training and doing things with him, Maxim was able to adapt to that. And so was Cody able to adapt to the new things that he was dealing with, like the seizures and then all with other things as well, the depression, the anger, even anger came into play. The unique thing is he would get angry with people, but he would never get angry with Cody. Cody was a center point for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, he'd get angry with me and he'd go run to Cody. And he would literally put Cody in between me and him. Kind of like, okay, this is my wall, this is my barrier. And I was okay with it because Cody was giving him the pressure and everything else. Now, what we also ended up doing was we would tether them together, but I would have 2 leashes. I would give Maxim a leash. I would still have the main leash, but I would give Maxim a little leash so that he still felt like, okay, I'm still in control here. I'm still helping. I'm still taking Cody places. But even though I still had, I guess you would call it control, but that way Maxim felt part of it as well.
That was a good point. With a lot of our recipients, they want to hold on to a handle, and some of the tethering vests have a handle that they can hold on to, but having a short leash, like literally like this big, you can attach it to the harness and they feel like they are in control too. Like, their parent has a leash, they have their own leash, it's their special leash, we call it. But it's no more pressure to the dog than just having the harness. So the dog's not getting like conflicting, I guess, direction, but they still have that control or feel like they have that control. It's for them. They're the only one that gets to hold it. It's special. It's just for them. And some of our recipients don't care. Like they don't hold on to the leash. Every now and then we have a recipient that's very young, so far not an adult, but children, where they they already have some difficulty like with facial recognition with people, and they don't engage very much with other people, and sometimes they don't even recognize that the dog is there in the beginning, but over time they do start to recognize that the dog is there, and they end up, you know, mumbling or talking to the dog and petting the dog and interacting with the dog over a period of time. And there are some studies that show that children with autism that have facial recognition problems with people, when they have a dog that's lighter in color, they their facial recognition with people increases over time. And the idea behind it is that they're looking at their dog and they're recognizing the facial features of their dog, and then it transfers over to people. I found that to be really interesting. So a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, we will place a lighter colored dog with a recipient who has trouble with facial recognition, because it's easier for them to recognize the facial features and then interact more with the dog. And something that we are always aware of and cautious about is that if a recipient is not going to be the handler, we almost want them to pick it up like through osmosis, like they can mirror their parents at some point, and get more instruction as time goes on. But there is no pressure, and there cannot be pressure from the parents either. So we encourage the parents as the professional trainers, like, we don't want to tell them to do anything more than what they want to do, because we really want the experience of getting a service dog to be a positive experience. And as soon as we start putting pressure on them, like, you have to train your dog and you have to do this and you have to do that, it's not fun anymore. And they don't want it. And we really want them to have a bond with the dog, because that's the best way that the dog is going to be able to help them. So we really are looking for different tells and behaviors and expressions, and we're listening to their words. Like, we're looking at the whole puzzle to make sure that they are actually enjoying the process, and that they're just, really not pushed to do more than they're comfortable doing. And so a lot of our kiddos, when they get the dog, they don't do anything handling wise with the dog. And then as time goes on, and, you know, they're maybe junior high school, sometimes even older than that, they start handling the dog for very brief periods of time while the parent is still there and giving them tips. So maybe they handle the dog on their own for a minute at the grocery store, or, 5 minutes at home, but the parent is there observing and watching it. And then when they're done, they just hand the leash back over to the caregiver, who is the handler of the dog. And the only thing that we say, like, okay, these are some hard fast rules, is when it comes to safety. Like, we tell the kids, like, okay, give your dog space. Like, if your dog's in the crate, you don't go in the crate. There was actually a couple of recipients that had to put a lock on the crate because their child would go into the crate anyway, like a combination lock on the crate, so that the dog could have its own personal space, because the child would go in there all the time, and then the dog would just be let out of the crate in the middle of the night, and the parents wouldn't know, which is a safety issue. So there are some safety issue things where, like, okay, this definitely can never happen. And then we also, like, learning to work with a dog is, you have to get a lot more muscle memory going, and there's so many different things that you have to be aware of and think through. But even just the way that you walk is now different. And that is definitely the case if someone's bracing on a dog. If they're using counterbalance, they have to learn how to walk again with the dog. I was talking to a recipient earlier today who is just matched with a dog, yay for her. And she's getting a mobility dog, and I was talking about the fact that there might be some falls during handler training because she's learning to walk again. It's like going through physical therapy, but learning to walk with a dog. And that's all part of the process. But sometimes with kiddos who are being tethered to a dog, like, if they spin in circles, they're spinning and they're getting wrapped up in the leash. And so it doesn't take too long for them to realize, okay, if I spin, I get wrapped up in the leash, and then I have to, like, get untangled from the leash. But there's a lot of tangling in the beginning, and, like, walking in front of the dog and then realizing, oh, I can't walk in front of the dog. And then, like, going over here and, like, oh, I'm stopped when I go over here. So they are learning how to walk too. They're learning how to move in a different way. There are certain ways that don't work anymore when there is a tether. That was a very involved answer, but I just wanted to cover all my bases. Ashley, do you have another question? A lot of questions. Okay, Tori and Char, did you have any other questions?
I just wondered, with autism, there's so many different levels and so many different types. How long did it really take for Maxim to bond with Cody? You know, the other ones that we've talked to, it's primarily been older kids, and they did a lot of the training. So I'm just curious, did it take longer, or did Cody understand what his job was and it happened quickly?
I mean, for them to actually have a full bond, it took a couple of months. But we kept reinforcing with Maxim before we even got there that, hey,
Yeah.
we're gonna go get you a buddy. Cody's gonna be your buddy. And so he got really excited because we kept reinforcing that with him, that we're going to get him a buddy. And then when we got the picture of Cody, we would all, Maxim had that picture, and we would say, okay, dude, this is going to be your buddy. This isn't going to be mama's buddy. This isn't going to be papa's buddy. Cody's going to be your buddy. And so with that, we kind of did some preemptive work before we even got there.
Now with Cody, I would say before I even got there, I was a week late getting into the handler training, and I got there. Cody is already connected to Maxim. He knew that was the person he was there for. He knew that he needed to listen to her, and believe me, he listened to her over me. But that was fine. That was fine. Now, if it was just me and him with Maxim, we were fine. He did everything. He responded right and did everything good. But they were already bonding within that first week. I think the information you provided Little Angels will give them the opportunity to find the right connection. Now, I guess this is a Katie answer. How many times does it kind of hit and miss? But in reality, they hit it right on spot. When we communicated the issues we're having with the personality and the evaluation they went through with us, they were so right on that the bond happened very quickly for Cody to him.
Yeah. And when we first got there for handler training too, when Katie came with Cody, she looked at me and she said, okay, now realize you need to step back. Maxim needs to be the one that needs to do this for about like the first 30 minutes. And she got Cody out, and it was just Maxim and Cody. So therefore they were already starting that without, me interfering, because, you see this cute puppy and you just want to go, oh, look. But, I realized too, this is Maxim's buddy. So I had to step back and just realize, okay, Katie's got this under control. She needs to do her thing and let me step back, because she's the professional in this. I'm not.
One other thing I want to touch on really quick, and then Christine, I'll ask if you have any other questions, because you had a list, right? Okay, good. One other thing I wanted to touch on, I was just reminded of it, is that when you are coming out for handler training and you have a child that's receiving a dog, you often need to have two adults there, because you need one adult that is learning to work with the dog, but while they're learning to work with the dog, they need to be really focused on working with the dog, but the child might not be able to be there in the session. Like, they might get bored, they might need to go on a walk, they might need to go to the bathroom. Like, as a parent, like, I know how this goes. As soon as like I get on the phone or something, that's when they need me, and like it doesn't stop. And so that can be really hard when you only have so much bandwidth in handler training, not just for the handler, the parent that's learning to work with the dog, also with the service dog. The service dog only has so much bandwidth. They only have so much in the day that they can be learning new things. And so when there's a lot of distractions like that, of a kiddo trying to get attention from their parent because they need something or they're bored and, whatever it is, that can prolong the process, and it can make it more difficult. And that is probably why Rhonda's friend was there also, is because John wasn't there the first week. And so she had a friend there that could help with Maxim while she was learning. So you do want to plan in advance for that. Sometimes we have a kiddo where that's really not an issue, and you know your kids. Sometimes I've had parents like bring a coloring book or some Matchbox cars, or a tablet is very popular anymore, or a phone. Back in the day, that wasn't a thing, and so we used books and Matchbox cars and Legos and all of that. But you know your child, you know your family member, and what they're going to need to keep them interested. Okay, Christine, ask all the rest of your questions.
Well, a couple have already been asked, so another one I had, because you had said since Cody did not go to school with Maxim and you would drop him off and then you'd be with him. I guess like kind of like when he hung out with you. Like how did that go about? Because obviously you don't want to form like his bond is with Maxim and not with you, but obviously he needs to listen to you and all that.
I would take him to work with me, and I had a dedicated space for Cody to be. And so he would just go to his pad. Usually it was under my desk. He would go there and then just hang out. And it's funny because he would know about the time that it was ready for us to wrap up to, get going. And he would come out and he'd be like kind of stretching and be like, okay, let's go. It's time to go get him. So he was kind of like telling me, it's time. We need to go get him. But he would hang out with me, and what I would try to do is not have that much interaction with him. Like he would be sleeping under the desk and I would just leave him alone. Because sometimes, you get to where you want to take your foot and you want to kind of scratch him on the tummy, or you want to do something like that. But I would kind of like leave him, just let him be. If he needed to go out, he'd let me know. I'd take him outside, we'd take care of all of that. But for the most part, yeah, he would just hang out at my office.
Yeah. With
We
me,
call it being utilitarian. So we encourage the parents to not be cuddly and ooey gooey and
Right.
little puppy, but just be utilitarian. And that is really hard, especially when you are really looking forward to having this new family member. And then you love them so much because they're giving so much to your child. So it's pretty hard to do. It's easier to say it than to do it, I know.
It is. It is.
and when he'd come to my office, whenever I had him with me, he would just come to my office and be a dog. He would not be, he wasn't working. He'd just be a dog. He'd go in, lay on his pad where he wanted to. When he got up, he'd come and get me. Okay, and he'd go, I had a water bowl there for him. Everything was for him. He'd just be the dog. He knew he didn't have to work right then, and it was time to relax. And that's what he would do. And sure enough, when it was close to that time, he would come get me. Actually, he'd go get my office manager and get her and to go get me because it was time for me to go. And sure enough, he'd come and we'd go.
Yeah, now I would take his vest off of him.
Yeah.
I would just let him, relax while he was there. And I would have his vest laying right there. So whenever we got ready to go, I'd get him dressed, get his vest on him, and then off we'd go.
And he knew when that vest went on, he went to work.
Yeah.
He still does. He still does. He sees my vest go on my dog, and he's like, "Where's mine? Where's mine? Where'd it go?"
Yeah.
So we put a little thing on him, and he's happy. But he's.
That's cute.
Oh, by the way, I'm glad, Katie, y'all are doing about the grief, because in my situation with mine, I had to stop letting her be one because she lost her sight.
She's got cataracts.
She ended up with cataracts because of diabetes. So I couldn't use her anymore. She still sensed me and everything. And just that, the grief that they don't realize it, I haven't talked to them about it, but there was grief there in separation just because she wasn't able to fulfill exactly what I needed. So I'm glad y'all are doing that. Now, thankfully, a couple of weeks ago, she had surgery. She has her full vision back and she's already back.
That's awesome.
She's already latched onto me and ready to go. So the cataracts removal, very expensive, but it worked and she's doing great. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate y'all doing that because it's tough.
It is really hard. I agree. Any other questions, Christine?
Just one more. When it came to, I guess kind of like exercising the dog, like if Maxim was like, I don't feel like going for a walk today, or whatever the case may be, kind of letting it, get out its puppy zoomies, because you get them when they're young, getting its walk in. If Maxim didn't feel like being a part of it,
I would take him for a walk.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have his vest or anything on him. I would take him out, walk him, things like that. Now, I would try to coax Maxim just to come along,
Mhm.
and go with the walk. Most of the time he would. If I would just say, listen, we're just going for a walk. We're going down to the stop sign and back. And he would. Or I would say, let's go in the backyard. You throw the ball. And then Maxim loved to throw the ball. So he would go and do that. Now, Cody wasn't much one to chase the ball. He would look at you like, well, you go get it.
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, it kind of fell to me to make sure that, Cody was being exercised.
And as Maxim got older, he
It got
started doing it,
easier.
it got easier, and they kind of did their own thing and kind of had it themselves. So it works, through growth, it changes, like Katie said.
Yeah. Now, one thing that got really funny is we would go out to eat a lot. And of course, we'd put Cody under the table. Well, Maxim got to where he was under the table with Cody. Well, at that point in time, I didn't care.
Yeah.
As long as Maxim, when we ordered, the food got there, Maxim would come back up, he'd eat, he'd go back under. And people that would come in and out around us didn't even realize we had a service dog there. And so we would get ready to leave. Well, all of a sudden, here's this kid that pops out from underneath the table, and here's this dog that pops out from underneath the table. And they're like, wait, what? What's going on here? So, I mean, it's little things like that. And it's almost like, as you know, with these kids, pick your battles. You got to pick what's important. And that was making Maxim feel comfortable. And so, because, restaurants are loud, they're with everything. And sometimes he didn't want to wear the headphones or whatnot. So we would just let him go where he felt comfortable like that, but still in a confined, safe area. And Cody was getting, he was getting loved on too. So it was good for both of them.
I'm going to normalize that for you because I think the majority of our autistic kiddos will go underneath the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a normal thing.
Yeah, it is.
But the dog wasn't up.
Yeah, he was laying down.
Yeah, he's in a down state. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fun little tent under there.
Yeah, it was. And he loved it because it was kind of confined. It was kind of closed in, and he had his buddy with him, and so he loved it.
Yeah. And as adults, parents, you can go out and you can have a dinner at a restaurant and not be, constantly redirecting and helping and the headphones and the this and the that, because it's all done.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're a team. And that's what I refer to them. Anytime I see a person with a dog, with a service dog, it's like, y'all make a good team. And that's all I say. And they get it. And because they do become a team.
Yeah.
And it's great to see.
When we write our certificates for graduation, if a child is the recipient and a parent is the handler, we write, how do I say it? It would be the dog and the family. So like it would be Sunshine and the Gonzalez family as written as the certificate, because it really is a team effort. And that's an important part of the dog going into public, is that it has to be under control and it has to assist the disabled party. So you need the family, you need the whole team, or it's not complete. And at some point the child might take over and then they might be the handler, but in the beginning it's the family, that's the team. So this interview was incredible. And I thank you so much for doing this. I let it just keep going because all these questions are really good. And I think it's going to be really beneficial information. It did take an hour, but I'm going to just like slightly adjust my game plan for tonight because I was going to go over socialization as part of management, but I'm just going to touch more on school and what other family members do with a dog for children so that we can just keep on with the same topic. And I'm going to get a lot of information poured in here in about 10 minutes. So if you want to hang out for another 10 minutes, I will go over that with you. And John and Rhonda, thank you so much for being in this. That was really great information. You reminded me of things that happened in handler training that I had forgotten about. It was a very enjoyable experience. I loved it.
It actually was. As a professional trainer, Katie, you are phenomenal.
Thank
And your team, everybody we
Yeah.
met with your team is phenomenal. You communicate well. Your heart, you can tell your heart's in it. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
My heart's definitely in it. That is for sure. It hurts sometimes because we have the grief and we share in that with you, but we also share in the joys. Like, this is a journey. It's a lifetime working relationship journey as long as you have that dog. And you know what? The relationship continues after the dog has passed, and it is really hard. It is difficult. I wish that dogs were not fragile beings just like we are, but they wouldn't be special if they weren't.
Yeah.
So it's part of the process. So we were talking about, the dog going to school and what that looks like if the dog's not going to school. And, as time goes on, I am finding more and more, like if we look at DEI and we look at inclusion and we look at diversity and like there's much more awareness. And I think that businesses and schools and organizations and just the general public is getting a good amount of education on that. So we are coming up against less hurdles and trying to pave the way for accommodation. So that part is good. And we still will have situations where we not need to talk to a school's district or talk to a school and explain, laws and explain how the dog helps. And like this, I know you've seen fake service dogs at Walmart, but this is not that dog. This family has gone through so much training. They went through 2 weeks and then they went through a month, and it's ongoing. We're always working with them. And they've worked with the dog in many different situations, and we would not recommend, suggest, or have the opinion that the dog should go to school if we don't think that it would be under control and it would be safe. But, a lot of people have been burnt before by fake service dogs and people that are taking advantage of the laws. And, also the schools have a responsibility to protect their students. And so I get it. It's not bad to walk into a situation and be somewhat wary and ask questions. But for the most part, we're coming to a point where people are open to it and they're listening. Most of the time, what I do is write a letter, which is really easy. And I do that for employers and I do that for schools. And usually that's all it takes anymore. But we're definitely willing to advocate for you and have meetings and educate them on what this looks like. I just recently had a really fun Zoom presentation with 2 classes of first graders. And so I got to talk about one of their fellow students' future dogs. We don't even know what dog it is, but it was nice to be able to sit there and educate these kids and have them ask questions. And at first grade, most of the questions are comments, and the questions were so adorable and not always on topic. But it was really great to see the involvement of the school and the willingness to get the kids involved and understanding what service dogs can do and how they can help students. So anyway, my point is that we are here fully to help with that educational process. And let me explain what it looks like legally for a school. As it could be private, charter, public, it doesn't matter. If the dog is there assisting during the day, not just at home, but assisting that child during the day with their disability, and it's under control. So those are 2 things. The dog can go to school. And that the important part of the under control is one of the major issues that is misunderstood. So just because the dog is a service dog doesn't mean you can demand that the dog go to school. We have to have a way for the dog to be under control. And many times the child is not able to, they don't have the maturity level to be consistent all day. They might be able to be consistent for even an hour, but all day with distractions and classmates, and they get tired at lunch and like all this, they might not be able to handle that dog. And also look at it from this perspective for the dog, the school, especially like, you know, the lunchroom and recess, is one of the most chaotic environments you can put a dog in. And so you have to have a really high level of handling ability to make sure that that is successful. Dogs are innately reactive creatures by nature. So like if a leaf blows by, their adrenaline spikes. And imagine what that would look like with balls being rolled by and bounced past and kids running and like jump ropes and all of the different things that are happening. So again, we wouldn't even place the dog in a situation where there are children if the dog hadn't been proved with children, but we still need to make sure that they're going to do a downstay, that they're not going to be reactive and try to go play tug of war or something. We don't play tug of war with our dogs for these reasons. But we do need to make sure that it's a really safe situation for everyone. And so if the child is unable to handle the dog, I've seen a lot of other things come into play. Sometimes a parent will come and handle the dog for the child, or they'll sit in the back of the classroom while the dog is with the student. I have seen cases where, this one's rare, but I have seen it, and we have worked with people on this, is that the family of the recipient will hire a dog handler to go to school, and they go and handle the dog for them. And a really, I guess a pretty common option is someone at the school that already works there volunteers to be the handler of the dog. So you can't legally force it because it's not written into their job description. But if there is, it's often like a one-on-one aide or an aide just in the classroom, and they say, you know what, I would love to handle the dog as part of my day, and I can still perform my job function and do all of these things. This is like a bonus for them. And they usually also have a heart for how the dog is going to be able to help the child. So in that case, it does get a little tricky on how to give them their instruction. They're more than welcome to come to handler training, and we will show them how to work with the dog. We have had cases before where a recipient was going to live in an assisted living residency, and there were employees there that were going to handle the dog on her behalf. And that was, I don't know if it just was the work culture in this particular home, but they were all there, just like a group of them, just like on their phones texting people while we're telling them how to handle the dog. Like they had no buy-in, they did not care. That was not going to be a long-term solution, and it wasn't. They didn't know how to handle the dog. They couldn't care less, honestly. Like they were getting a paycheck, and that was really unfortunate. So it doesn't always work if you have someone like that involved. But as the parent coming out, like in this case, you know, we have all these parents there. Sometimes it is a caregiver that's learning how to handle the dog, and it's not a parent. Sometimes it's a spouse, and they're learning to handle the dog for, you know, their husband or their wife. But there's a lot of work put in that 2 weeks in learning how to handle the dog. And then we're in contact every day for a month after that, and we're always available to help them. So look at the comparison of a volunteer at the school that now needs to receive that same amount of instruction, and they can't go to handler training. As the parent, you're not a professional trainer, but you somehow have to give all of that information to this aide. That is hard. It has worked in the past, but this is a huge commitment on your part. So long story short, much of the time, the dog does not end up going to school with the child because it's not practical. But we will work with you to see if there's any human way possible for it to happen. And I've seen some really beautiful things. There was, I think I've talked about it in this, with this group, about how we had a dog that was trained to alert to a little boy's seizures, and the dog went to school and did that during the day. And then the next year there was, you know, they changed the students up a little bit in the next class, and there was a little girl who had seizures in that class, and the dog alerted both kids' seizures in advance. which was neat. And the dog went to alert the teacher. It was trained to do that. I've seen it where the dog is even up on a dog bed next to the teacher's desk. And but most of the time the dog is like on a downstay right next to the child's desk, because that's where the most help is going to come in. But in that case with the seizure alert, it was up there by the teacher. So every situation is unique, and we will be working with that, working on that with you. When it comes to the dog not going to school with the student, and the dog is going to be going with the caregiver or parent, sometimes it depends on what state you live in, like how many strings we can pull to get that dog to go to work with you, like what your employer is going to accept. So even if you are, like as an example, in California, it would be easier because we have California Civil Code 54.2 that says a service dog in training has the same public access rights as a full-fledged service dog. So the argument from a parent standpoint would be that while my child is at school, I'm working on the dog's training to keep the training up. And then I can run errands with the dog afterward. Well, the employer does not have to follow the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, but they are supposed to use it as a guideline. So the employer, they are supposed to be able to accommodate, but that's with the disability, and the person with the disability is not at the school. So then we're using California 54.2. We usually don't have to get to a point like that. And it's usually just a conversation like, this dog is highly trained and the dog is not going to be a nuisance. It's not going to change the job function of your employee that's bringing the dog to work with them. And it's not going to interrupt the flow of business. And, like the dog's really trained. It's going to be able to do a downstay right underneath their desk. The dog can be in a break room. So like if someone was going to take the dog to work, but they were a nurse in an emergency room, that looks a lot different than if you are doing administrative work at a desk in a cubicle. And it can even look different. Like we have a recipient that worked at an Apple computer store, and they allow all sorts of pet dogs to go in there. So you are constantly having this flux of pet dogs. And so they had to put the service dog in a safe place so that it's not going to, be like attacked by a passing pet dog, and they didn't expect to have another dog in there. I mean, every situation is different. If you work in a pharmacy, you're not going to have the dog right there. It's going to be in a separate space. The nurse in the emergency room is probably going to have the dog crated in a break room so they can go and check in with them at breaks. So it looks a lot different. But as a parent or caregiver, this dog is called a skilled companion dog. That's the technical term given to these dogs. It's part of the Assistance Dogs International vocabulary. And so that we can use this vocabulary and know that we're all talking about the same thing industry-wide. So that's what a skilled companion dog is. And that the handler of the dog, they have to be utilitarian because they don't want to create a bond with the dog, because if then you get home or you're at the store or at the restaurant or whatever, and the dog is really focused on you as the handler instead of organically following the recipient around, they're not going to notice their seizures, their meltdowns. They're not going to be there to do an automatic deep pressure therapy when they're feeling overwhelmed. They're not going to be there to help pick up the item that fell. Like there's so many different reasons, but it doesn't just apply to you as the handler, it also applies to your other family members. And so other family, like siblings, it's really hard for a parent to do this. It's also going to be hard for kiddos. And I have seen all sorts of ways to appease the emotional struggle of the other children involved. I have seen everything from one family got the other siblings hermit crabs instead of a dog. They've gotten guinea pigs. They've gotten one family. This was overkill, and I don't recommend it. They got everyone else a puppy, like individually. I was like, no. Let's back up a minute. This is way too much. This is really, really hard. They didn't end up keeping the puppies. So talk to us first. Like what would work in this situation? I've had other siblings like get a special trip, or like while they're at handler training, like they might arrive a day early and they might go to Disneyland because that's what the child wanted to do, or they go to Legoland or something. And I've also had parents say, you know, life is hard knocks sometimes, and your brother or your sister has really been going through this, and this is their turn. Deal with it. And that's how you do it. So we all have different parenting styles, and there's no like, well, I was going to say there's no right or wrong way. A wrong way would be to get everybody a puppy. Don't do that. But that's because it affects the service dog's work. But talk to us about some different ways. If you're trying to navigate this hard life of being a parent and, you know, having equal opportunities for each of our children, you might need to get some advice. And I have some, not because I'm an excellent parent, but because I've seen what a lot of excellent parents do. So I can tell you like what I've seen. I've seen a lot and I know what works and what doesn't work. And again, we have personalities that are involved. So anyway, that's my spiel that actually lasted for longer than 10 minutes, but that is definitely a topic when it comes to managing a service dog in the home, when it comes to the interactions with other people, going to work, going to school, et cetera, et cetera. Does anyone have questions on anything I just went over, or any other questions for John or Rhonda?
What about the interactions of, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Dogs, and it made me think of John, since John said he has his own service dog. Just the interactions of dog with other dog, and John's might be a little different because he's, or she was already attached to you prior, but
For us, it's been a little bit different because Cody was already with Maxim and Rhonda was the main handler. And my situation with everything, we brought Cody and Willow into the picture, and Willow is adapted to it, but she knows she's mine and she does it. But between them two, they're fine. They actually make sure they handle it. They handle everything together very well. They communicate very well with each other. They take care of each other. It's really wild now that Cody's gotten older. Willow takes care of her sometimes and lets us know, hey, Cody needs something. So yeah, it's pretty good. But I will tell you, Katie, that every school that we had to deal with, and Christina, every school after we went to an IEP or something and we brought Cody, they were regretting the problems they caused at the beginning because they saw the response and how much easier it would be, because he would cause issues in the class. But as soon as Cody was around, all that was gone.
Mm.
Communication is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
I will tell you, every one of them regretted it. Every teacher saw the process, every school, because we ended up, unfortunately, changed several schools through that process because of our area changing. But they regretted it. They really did.
Yeah, it can be a beautiful thing. It can not only help the child, but just the presence of the dog really can help the whole classroom. And this is after us telling the children not to interact with the dog. It still helps to calm the classroom, interestingly.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm. And on the topic, Christine, of like how to like managing other animals in the home, next session that we have isn't, I don't think that we're going to have an interview, so I'm going to get a lot further in the service dog management. And but I mean, this, I don't know, I feel like this is even more valuable to have the interviews. So I wanted to do that. But it's either going to be next session or the session after that when I get to that part of the curriculum where I'm talking about managing other animals in the home. So I am going to get to it. I promise. Any other questions?
I just want to thank John and Rhonda for sharing their stories.
welcome.
It's so helpful to us as parents that are waiting and know that life is going to change and in time to come. So thank you both.
As a husband that has a wife that's waiting right now, she's
Yes,
on the
I'm on the list right now.
So
Okay.
it's
Another
tough.
unique situation.
What's that?
Another unique situation.
Yeah,
Yes.
another whole unique. And it's just because we have the experience with Cody and Maxim that when John and I got to talking about, for me, I was just like, yeah, I'm going back to Katie. I'm like, that right there is no question. It was just the thing, okay, should I do this? Would it be beneficial? And then once we did the pros and cons, the pros outweigh the cons so much. And I was like, okay, yep, we're going back there.
The wait is very hard, but the end
It is.
result, it's so good.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
amazing dogs.
It is. But we love talking about Cody. We love talking about, we have no problems talking, and Maxim doesn't even have a problem talking about his disabilities. And so we love educating people.
We've
That's
certainly done that tonight.
Very much so.
he's waiting to get the internet code.
Okay, well, he's gonna have to wait a little longer.
Okay, any last questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've got one real quick. I'm sorry. I know we had talked about Jonah's situation with him being in the special needs class, and I did have a follow-up by EP with them actually today. And they did mention just a one-on-one aid strictly for that. Does that make the difference where it's not fully on, I guess, the teacher? Because I know we talked a couple weeks ago on that being a difficult thing.
I mean, possibly if that, it's still voluntary on
Right.
the one-on-one aid part, but
Right.
that's all they have to do. Like, they're not also helping all these other children. There's not a lot of other things going on, so it does make a difference.
Specifically designated for that position, and that's what they had talked about today. So
Yeah,
was just kind of wondering if that would help. So
it would help. It would help. There's still hurdles that we have, but
a lot of yes, a lot of training and a lot of
Yeah.
videos with the sessions that we have as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming
you.
tonight. Thank you for all of your great questions. These were really good. You're asking questions on behalf of recipients who couldn't be here, so I know that they'll really enjoy watching this interview. All of you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.